So I'm Sharon Stothard. I've been a respiratory nurse for many years, 22 years. Worked as a nurse for Sunderland for 35 years. This really all started on the back of the National Review of Asthma Deaths that came out in 2014. So because as part of my role as the respiratory nurse, we were asked to review the outcomes for the trust. But one of the things that was highlighted was patients were attending ED that we didn't know about and we weren't following up, but we were only knowing about the people who were actually admitted. So I looked at it over a 6-month period because I needed to prove there was a problem, and there wasn't anybody who helped us. I was doing it. Every day I just set aside half an hour just to do a bit of fact finding about how many patients there was, how frequently they were attending, and why they were attending. Then that's when the themes started coming about from the information I was gathering. So in that time there was 28 patients identified as having learning disabilities who have been attending A&E. Out of the 28 people, 20 of them were actually very independent and often lived in supported living, but did a lot of things on their own, didn't have 24/7 carers, didn't live with parents, didn't live with other family members who were supporting them. It was obviously a huge gap in the service that would offer these patients for them to just be coming in and out like revolving doors, round and round and round.
I've been in and out of hospital with my asthma. I was in intensive care. I had choreography on my throat, cut me throat. That's the only way to keep us alive. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here. I was in now 4 weeks. I couldn't dare walk up the stairs. It was really bad.
And that was the first thing that I could see outright, looking at this. No reasonable adjustments appeared to have been made for this group of patients. So the data that I managed to gather actually was very useful, and when I took it to my matron, so she went, absolutely, just see how it goes, do it once a week initially, we'll just take it from there kind of thing. So what we did, we set the clinic up and we set it up in a way that everybody went, that's never going to work, like what on earth are you doing? So once the person had been to ED, we then made them an appointment within 2 weeks, which is the national guidelines. They would come into clinic and we would literally spend the first appointment of 30 minutes not really talking about their asthma, just talking about them and what they liked and what they did and what they knew and what they didn't know, and it was like a fact-finding appointment. The next appointment was when I actually got down to the nitty-gritty. Once I'd understood what they understood and they couldn't do themselves, and that's when we did a lot around kind of them understanding their asthma, their understanding of what is asthma and what is just being short of breath was very clouded when I first met a lot of the patients. They didn't understand that you can actually be short of breath and be all right. It was that education and that empowerment to be able to manage things effectively and know what to do if it wasn't. It's important to change the way that we have been having these patients access the clinics and make reasonable adjustments so that they're looked at as individuals, and it's not just this group of patients with learning disabilities who have asthma. These are actually asthmatics who have a learning disability.
My asthma was horrendous, but since I came here, I've learned how to use an inhaler and everything. You've learned us a hell of a lot.
Although it wasn't very complicated, it's keeping it simple. We don't need to cloud the waters any more than it already is. So lots of people have their asthma management plans, often can't read them, often don't know what to do with them. You might have that plan, but if you think you're having an asthma attack, that's the last thing you're going to think about, trying to find that bit of paper. One of the things I use quite a lot with people is, if you're feeling very unwell, phone somebody and talk down the phone to them, and if you can't speak to them in a sentence, you know that things are not good with your asthma. So this is something that we used for patients who have specific triggers for their asthma, but they can't remember what their triggers are time to time. So I could tell them in clinic, once we've done the testing, that their trigger is pollen, for example. but then they wouldn't remember to take their antihistamine, or they would forget, or they would go somewhere they were going to be exposed to a lot of pollens.
Sharon give us this. Changes up as well. Yeah, because of my pollen allergy.
Changes in the clinics were simple things. Sending out an easy read appointment letter, sending out any information that we were going to send out at the literacy level of the person we were sending it to, for a starter, be it patient information leaflets, anything like that. Normal clinic appointments 10 to 15 minutes, and after a long hard battle I got 30-minute slots. Absolutely works 100%. You've got time to sit down and have conversations. I'm always of the mindset that let's go in and assume they can do everything that everyone else can do, and they'll tell us what they can't do.
Great, I look forward to coming in. Because you is understanding, you take your time, you explain stuff in a way I can understand. So if I struggle in my speech starts, you always take your time instead of just making us rush.
The outcomes, we did some patient satisfaction surveys and they quite liked to have somebody that they knew, who knew them, and they could talk to about it instead of seeing somebody different all the time. They quite liked the fact that I pushed it back to them and said, it's your responsibility, come on, we need to manage this properly. And they liked the fact that they could understand why they were short of breath now, whereas before they just constantly thought they had an asthma attack, when actually it's all right to run up the stairs and be short of breath, like we all do it. So it was the understanding of their disease and empowering them to manage their disease. And the other hand was, which wasn't in my brain to be fair, not my nursing brain anyway, was the money saving aspect of it. So the trust got very excited. A significant difference in the amount of out of hours and ED attendances. It was huge. It went down by 25%. And it's quality of life for this group of patients, just by making very small adjustments to what we were doing and thinking outside the box a little bit, really. Yeah, so we realised, having done this piece of work, that we were going to need to make some reasonable adjustments for this group of patients in our outpatient clinics. So the reasonable adjustments that we made were sending out letters that they could read in easy read format for the appointment, sending any patient information that was required in a format that they could read and understand, or make sure there was someone there that could support them with that. Longer appointment times so that they could establish a relationship with ourselves and get the best out of that appointment instead of feeling rushed and not listened to, which is one of the things that came up quite frequently. Making sure that there was physical access to the department and disabled toilets, and we had rooms big enough to get wheelchairs in and things like that. And I think some of the reasonable adjustments that we made can be used across the trust for other groups of patients as well, tying in with the national reasonable adjustment flag, to ensure that staff know that not only people with learning disabilities may need reasonable adjustments, and I think that's going to be approximately 28% of the population who will need those. So any adjustments that have been made could be adapted in other areas or adopted by other areas. I think advice that we would give to other areas would be, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Not everything's black and white, and things are guidelines. It's not all written in stone, and we need to take that person for individualised, personalised care and look at the person instead of looking at the disease. We're very good at clinicians looking at diseases, but I think sometimes the person gets lost in that.